Hello, Matt. Hello, Mike. This is not Mike. This is MikeBot 5000. How are you, MattBot 5000? MattBot 5000 is okay. Would MattBot 5000 prefer to speak at length about a topic and record it for the internet? Affirmative. Engage.
Just joking, everybody. It's really human, Matt and Mike. Although it's funny, in the future that we may look back on this and cry.
We won't
welcome
be
to
able
Hacking
it will have been replaced by AI.
That's true. Welcome to Hacking the Grepson, the podcast about development, software, and today we're going to talk about AI again. Now, AI stands for artificial intelligence. We already did an episode about AI, which was kind of like a broad swath of like what are the different technologies adjacent to artificial intelligence, like LLMs and ML and et cetera, et cetera. We're not going to rehash that again. There's a ton of articles out there where you can look up that info. So instead, we thought an interesting episode would be, and this actually came from my own mom. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mike's mom.
I asked her for topics, and she asked about, what about do one on AI and, for normal people? Like, what is AI and why would I use it and how could I use it? And so let's talk about the practicalities of actually using AI in 2025, Matt. How's that sound?
That sounds great. Have you, by chance, asked ChatGPT what a normal person can use AI for?
I haven't. Have you?
I haven't, but as you were talking about it, I was like, that would be actually a good example for finding this kind of thing out.
Well, this is a live recording, so we can just do that. I'm going to ask ChatGPT. What should I ask?
Wait, this is live? I thought you edited these. Oh man, I got so much stuff. I thought you were
no. This is all bumps and scars. What should I ask ChatGPT specifically?
You should ask it, what are some examples of uses for AI by an average person?
What are some uses for AI by an average person? To ChatGPT right now. Wow. It's, I'm still impressed that at least, everybody calls ChatGPT basically just super duper auto correct or auto predict or whatever, but I'm still impressed by how fast it spits out something.
When you get into deep philosophical discussions with it, it starts getting slower.
Well, sure. Okay. Yeah.
It's really fast. It's impressive.
Yeah, it is really fast. I mean, like, it spat back like 4 different lists, categorized for me: productivity and organization, learning and creativity, entertainment and leisure, shopping and finance, health and wellness.
That didn't even touch on the one I've found most useful.
Yeah, I mean, just a smattering of things that it suggested were using AI for email management, like Gmail Smart Compose, which is essentially like, hey, I need to write an email to somebody about something. Give me, a paragraph to start me out with, so that I don't have to think.
There's a thing I will never use because I'm so choosy about what words I use in writing.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of...
Other people hate writing things and don't know how to convey their thoughts well, so it's great for that.
So I want to go off on a bit of a rant about this, because
Mike rant,
that kind of thing. I don't remember where I saw it, but there was like some example I saw somewhere where there was some service that would basically like use AI to write a letter and print it out and send it to like someone for, somebody, is sick and I want to send them a get well card or something like that, but I don't want to actually use my brain to think about what to say to them. So I'm just going to ask AI to write it for me and send it to them. And everything about that felt like a dark dystopia, because it's like the whole point of artificial intelligence, as far as I understand it, is that computers are smart enough now. They're powerful enough, fast enough, et cetera, to do things that we once thought could only be done by humans. Intelligent things, like I need to write a letter to my grandma who's sick. Write a letter to grandma for me, and I just tell it to do it, and it does it. And it like understands what a letter is, what should be in that letter, how to send it, et cetera, all that kind of stuff. But where artificial intelligence loses me is when it tries to take the human out of humanity.
Humanity? Yeah.
Yeah, and
100%
then we're
agree.
just left with itty, and I don't want just itty. That's
I
not
don't want to
enough.
be itty. I want to be human.
No.
Yeah, I kind of break it. Like, I think you and I have very similar thoughts on this, I believe, especially from what you just described. Where I have been able to start finding practical use for artificial intelligence in my own life is almost all about taking the tedium out of tasks, right? And, we've talked about frameworks and all those kind of things, and those are all similar concepts, like taking the tedium, take this repetitive thing out of my hands. Even some programming languages are like that. And I think if you approach AI that way, there's a lot that can be done with it, but it's when it falls into that, like, yeah, I don't want to actually talk to my grandma, but I need to check that box so she'll send me the check at Christmas. Like, that's where it loses me. I'm like, no, I don't want AI to make it so that can work more and and play less. Like, family and downtime is the thing that AI should be giving me more of. Like, I don't want to offload that kind of thing. And I do kind of judge people that will. But hey, you know what? There are people that maybe they have dyslexia or first English isn't their first language or something where something like that could make sense. I had a guy on my team fairly, a couple of years ago when ChatGPT was just like really coming on the scene, where we had written something up that we were going to send out. And he's like, let me run it through ChatGPT first and see if it can like polish it up. And I did not like the outcome of it because, again, I'm very picky about what words I want to use. But we didn't just send that out. He used it, and then we kind of like took both versions and we took the things we liked from both and synthesized them together into something that was good. And I was like, oh, okay. I can see a point. And then 2 years later, I finally started doing something about that.
I mean, it sounds like what you're saying is that what something like ChatGPT or any kind of generative AI is doing, where you need it to make something that doesn't exist already, is for brainstorming, because brainstorming can be very tedious. Like projects are fun once you kind of have an idea and a direction, but until you get there, ideas are a dime a dozen. Like, you could sit in a room with 20 people and all throw out a bunch of ideas and still not come up with anything good. But what's something that AI is really good at right now is just churning through all of the potential options and giving you a good starting point.
Yeah. It's important, I think, as we start going into the examples of ways that you can use this in your day-to-day life, or how we have been, right? I have a couple of examples that are very specific to things I have started doing in the last few weeks, that you have to remember that as smart as it seems AI is, it's still dumb. It's basically just copy pasting out of a bunch of different places and trying to make it make sense.
Yeah.
So it's always good to double check what that says. You go to Google and you type in a search thing and it gives you an AI thing. Check the sources on what it's saying before you go spouting off that, yes, in fact, the Great Wall of China is made of cheese. It's like, is it though?
Maybe really hard cheese. Okay, so did you want to give your examples first, or should I give mine?
Sure. I've got sort of like 3 topics. Maybe we can, and I'm sure we'll have more. One starts to get into less of the average person and more into like, how can it be useful in your day-to-day life as a software developer? I figure we'll hit that one last. But the other 2 that I think are really useful, one is like what I call searching plus or interactive searching. And I've got an example of someone that I saw on like TikTok the other day, like fundamentally captured exactly what I wanted to say on it. So I'll see if I can channel her for it. And then the other part is learning, and like learning a new skill, learning about something, and like how I finally started to be able to use that in a way that was helpful to me. So starting with the searching plus, which I think is probably how most people use ChatGPT. You can go on Google or Bing or Ask Jeeves or whatever people are using these days. And you can say, where's an auto parts store near me? And like, that doesn't necessarily use AI. It uses some like fuzzy logic on your wording to figure it out, but it kind of stops there, right? You go on Google and you do that, and it's like, okay, here's an answer. You asked a question. You were looking for a thing, and here's some things that match that. Where I think these large language models AIs come into play, where they can be useful, is if you want a more nuanced answer or you want it to kind of like summarize everything. So I found it very useful for the other day. My daughter wanted to go see an R-rated movie. She's 15, and I was fine with it. She was going with a friend. That friend's parents were fine with it, and we were like, "Can they do this? How do we get them in?" And searching was useless there. Could not get an answer. But I asked ChatGPT, and it gave me an answer that was, I mean, the one I thought, which is you probably have to call the theater and find out. But like, it's like, here's a lot of the scenarios that might go, and it gave me the background on the thinking. And I was able to like refine the question. It gave me an answer. I said, well, what about in California specifically? What about here? What if she's, what if it's this age? What if it's, what if one of the parents goes with it? And I could keep asking questions on the same topic and refine my searches. And for me, that kind of searching, I'm like, that was where I first started to see the benefit of AI was not just people, because I saw everyone was just using it as a new search engine. I'm like, that's dumb. Just use Google. Google works fine. But it's that interactive piece where you can ask questions or go off on tangent like, oh, what's that word mean? And like not have to open up new tabs and new things. It's just more like conversational. I feel like I'm just having a conversation with a really pedantic friend talking to ChatGPT. But that's the one where the lady on TikTok that I saw the other day, she was basically like, why did no one tell me that people are using AI like this? And then she described how she was doing her grocery shopping now, building her grocery lists. And she literally just went in and was very nuanced and descriptive about what it is she wanted. She's like, all right, I've got a family of this many. One of them has a lactose intolerance. One of them has this kind of thing, and no one likes fish, and like blah blah blah. And like, I'm looking for this kind. Like, I want to cook all my meals on Sunday and have them good throughout the week, and I don't want to repeat the same meal twice in a row. It's like, just like here's my list of things I want, and ChatGPT like gave suggestions, and then as she picked them, it's like, okay, and here's your list. It was like, boom, these ingredients. And then like with links off to like how to cook the recipes and all this other stuff. And I'm like, that is brilliant. That is exactly the kind of thing that I would want to use AI for. Like, it's the kind of thing I would like, yeah, you can do it yourself, but it requires a lot of like, okay. And then make sure that's not there and make sure, okay, oh, well, we had meat yesterday. I want to have fish, and not fish, because there was no fish. I remember that one in that list. So that's sort of like searching. I don't know if you have anything in that area that you want to talk about as well.
I mean, I'm looking at the list that ChatGPT gave me, and I mean, it does say like smart shopping assistants, but that's more like suggesting deals or helping you find the best price, which just feels kind of like a, I think what you're getting at, the search plus plus. I like that because we already have search. We've had search for decades, and it's really going that extra mile in the conversational part. I mean, just using ChatGPT, you don't have to, like, I remember when Google search or just searching the internet, there was a real science that you could kind of like be good at searching and using the right search terms.
My Google foo is stronger than yours.
Right. Yeah. Like, and it there really was a skill that you could get better at in terms of searching. Now people will say, oh, that's prompt engineering, which basically is just like, do you know how to ask an AI like ChatGPT in the right way so that it has all the parameters and the tokens that it needs to give you the best answer?
Yeah, so you can set the boundaries of what kind of things it's going to give you,
like you said, no
actually
fish.
Get it to like I want this information, right?
Yeah, can't spoil after a week, et cetera, et cetera, and you can't really type all that into Google search. But you can into ChatGPT, and
although if you type it into
only
Google
gets
search,
better.
it now runs it through its own AI, but
because
that doesn't
everybody
have the
has
interactive component.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like when you ask the question of like, how can I use AI as an average user? Like, you're already using AI as an average user without even knowing it, because like all the services you already know and love are using it in the back end without you knowing.
Yeah, at the very least, for they're parsing your words to figure out what it is that you are actually searching for, right? When Google first came out, it was an incredibly useful tool as a search engine because it allowed you to be fairly precise in what you were looking for, but you couldn't necessarily ask it in natural language. And over the years they've gotten more and more. It was like, man, what kind of pizza should I get? Or you can just ask that. And many people like a Hawaiian pizza, but some people don't like that. Pepperoni is a top popular choice. Or just like, here's Domino's menu, right?
Yeah.
Those are the kind of things you're going to get at best, but you can't refine from there.
Yeah, and when you think about like where Google or where internet search was when the internet first started, because you and I were both around for it, like
Meta search.
yeah, or just something like Yahoo. When Yahoo was the search engine that everybody used, like they just had really, really, really long lists of links to sites that existed, and it just got bigger and bigger as more sites existed. But then Google came up with their whole page rank idea, which was like, no. We don't want to just give you like a static, dumb list of things based on a word you put in. We also want it to take into account how many things are linking to it, because that means that it's popular, and that means more people probably want to see that, and we'll push that to the top of the list. Now Google is not only doing stuff like that, but also, like you said, sending it to their own AI. I think there's this called Gemini. I don't know if that's what they use on their back end, but that's their kind of user-facing AI. To further kind of try to figure out what you're actually asking, even if you don't know what you're asking, based on large language models and patterns and predictions and all that kind of stuff. So
what's funny about that is that thinking back on the days when Google first came out, one of the things that all us nerds loved about it when we were using it was that it gave you the answer that you were looking for right at the top. Now Google has the first paragraph is AI that is maybe right, and then a page or so of sponsored links, and then you get to this. Then you start getting to the things that actually made Google search worthwhile. And I feel like in a lot of ways, if you can ask the right question of an AI, it gets you to that answer faster than going to these search engines.
Yeah. So I think your tag of Search Plus Plus is definitely something that that is helpful, and you may already be using without even knowing it, just because that's what all the tech is doing right now. So I like that. I like that a lot. I wanted to bring up the idea of, since we already talked about generative AI, but in the ways that I've used it, and have actually stopped using it after using it for a while. So generative AI not only can use a large language model to kind of predict what the answer to your question is, you can also use it to make things like art, like images and music, and et cetera, et cetera. And much to your point where you're like, no, technology is not supposed to take away play and let me do more work. It's supposed to take away work and let me do more play, which is kind of at a bad cross section with things like DALL-E and Night Cafe, which is something I've used in the past, where you basically just say, I want an image of this in this style, of this resolution, with these things in it, but not these things. Basically, the more words you give it, the better it can generate an image that is like what you're thinking in your head without it literally knowing what's in your head. And I used that for a while because it was good for, especially since Zoom is a big thing. I've been a remote worker for many years. I get bored at looking at my background. I love to change the background every once in a while just so I have something different to look at. So I would use it to generate backgrounds. And it was kind of fun because I would show up to a meeting and people wouldn't know what my background was going to be. And they're like, what is that? What did you type in to get that? And it was fun. I mean, literally, it was just fun. It was interesting and fun to do something like that.
And I think that's a great use for those kind of things, is dumb messing around. Like I think we've talked about this maybe on the podcast.
Messing around?
I have something called aphantasia or aphantasia, which is where I cannot see visual images in my mind. Most people can. If you think of a red ball, you can see a red ball. I cannot. It's impossible for me. It is not a thing. And that's fine for red balls. I know what a red ball looks like. But if someone is describing something weird, like often happens in when I'm playing D&D online or something, I find it very useful to throw that into something like DALL-E to get an image of it. And I'm like, oh, okay, I can kind of now I can kind of grok what they're saying.
I like that. That's good. Now I will poo-poo on that
Yes,
just
please.
for a moment. One of the things I also used it for blog header images, which are often kind of like throwaway things that don't really matter, but at least break up the text with a visual. And people respond to visuals more than they do text online. Just it's proven, I guess, at this point.
true.
But yeah, but what I started realizing after a certain amount of time is much like with text generation, image generation and music generation and any kind of generative AI that's making new stuff based on lots and lots and lots of data that it has analyzed and figured out like patterns and attributes so that it can create something new. How did it learn all that stuff? Well, it learned all that stuff by taking in a bunch of existing media that people have already made. And
Much like how
as
we used to
someone-
write web pages.
yeah, as someone who
Is an artist.
is an artist and makes music and makes audio, there was something ethical about it that turned me off when I really started to think about what I was doing. And I kind of stopped because I didn't like the feeling that I was using all that data without really giving any kind of attribution and just using it as like, just labor to make something for me. Now, what I did do though, just to kind of bring it back to the middle, is that I didn't immediately get rid of all of the images that I had already used on my blog that were made by AI. But what I did do is that I went and I attributed them to where they were made and what the prompt was that I used. So there was
good. I
at
like
least
that.
some kind of like I'm admitting where this came from and how it was made, and I'm not trying to pass it off as something I made, even though honestly still most AI generated images look like AI generated
Yeah.
images, but I think that will change in the future and they will get so good that you will honestly not be able to tell the difference.
Yeah,
But
they're
until
already
then-
getting real close to that. Sometimes
They're getting real
It's-
close. Yeah.
Like you can, like if you look at it after a while, you're like, oh, that person has 2 left feet.
Yeah,
that's. A
but
little
even
weird.
that is not necessarily the case anymore. That's the thing is with AI is that you just keep throwing data at it, and it's gonna get imperceptibly AI at some point.
And I think that's cool, but I completely agree with you on the artistic aspect of it.
Yeah.
If you don't have the natural ability to do something and you want to like get an idea of it, almost like a proof, like a prototype or a proof of concept or something like.
Yeah.
If I have a friend who is on my other podcast that I do, which is the Knights of the Roll Table.
Mr. Podcast, multiple
He's
podcasts,
an artist.
man.
Like he's a really good artist. Like he drew this poster behind me right now.
Yeah.
That is all of our characters. He's a great artist, and I can see like if I was working with him, if I wanted him to build something for me, draw something, and I can't describe it well, I can iterate on the AI and be like, this is kind of what I'm thinking as like from my perspective, but I want it in your style and I want you to do it your way. This is just the closest I could come because I can't sketch out an idea real quick and be like, here, make this pretty, right? But I could do that. I could be like, okay, instead of him having like draw a thing and then me go, no, I want the beard shorter. I'm really thinking more like, and trying to describe it in words and having him have to spend a lot of labor to even figure out what I mean. I can skip over a lot of that so he can just do the part that is actually creative and interesting. And I'm like, this is what this person looks like to me. Can you make them a cool D&D character? Or using it to balance out my, I don't want to call it a disability, but I guess it is, my inability to be able to picture things in my mind. Your background thing, I think, is totally a reasonable thing. It's like you're not making money off that. It's a dumb thing for like 3 people, right? However many people are in the meeting. Your blog, that was where my hackles got raised. And I was like, no, because see, that's public and it's on your thing where you did spend effort. And so like that I would want attributed to like an actual person, which is one of the reasons I never have header art in anything I ever do. Because I can't find what I want. And it's like, there's this weird fuzzy line there. But the thing is, there are valid use cases for it that you might want to use, right? If you're just trying to convey an idea,
Yeah.
it's very useful. If you try to sell that thing that it just made, That's not okay.
Let us not get into NFTs because
Yes,
I feel
yes,
like
let's
you're
not.
right on the edge.
I wasn't trying to go that way at all, but yeah. Okay. The big thing that got me like hyped about AI recently is learning, like teaching me new things. I love to learn new things. It is one of my favorite things in life. And I found that it is more and more difficult to get good information for new things that is not written either like for someone who's never left their bedroom, right? It's like you have no experience in the world whatsoever, or are written as if you know a bunch of stuff that there's no possible way you would know if you like. I'm like, I can't find a middle ground that's like. So, for example, I had to start learning JavaScript and TypeScript when I came onto my job here, and I had never really used them. You cannot find something that is like, hey, you're a really good software developer. You know how to write code. You know what a for loop is already. Right? You understand classes. You understand all these concepts, but you don't know this specific language. The best you can find there is here is a language reference, which is unhelpful because I don't know what the words are to look up. An alphabetical list of the functions is not helpful to me. So I wish I had used ChatGPT back then to do that, because what I really needed was I needed someone to curate the information to my level of understanding so that I could get what I needed. And because the way I learn is by asking questions and doing things, being able to have that interactive piece. And so I've actually used this twice in the last couple of weeks, probably more than this, but like specifically things that I found it to be just like almost life-changing and how good it worked, how well it worked. Yeah. The first was, and I mentioned this on our last episode, there is a language, I guess, a programming language type thing that defines your interface in software. It's called GraphQL. And I'm like, okay, the closest analog to that is this thing called REST. I know REST, and I know how to write APIs, and I know this, and I know that, and I know this other thing, and I just don't get what they're trying to tell me about this. Like, why does this work? So I just went on ChatGPT, and I was like, here's a bunch of stuff I know, and I'm trying to learn this thing, and can you give me a high-level overview of that? And it just like, yeah, here. And I was like, oh, I have a question about this second paragraph. You mentioned that, there's input type. What's an input type? And then deep dive on that. Cool. Going back. And so like I had like a 2-hour-long conversation with ChatGPT.
Wow.
After
Nice.
which I came out of it feeling very knowledgeable about something that prior to that I couldn't have spoken about with anyone with any intelligence. And that let me make a head start on something. And then, speaking of our last episode, which was on bottom-up versus top-down programming, or not programming, thinking, I knew what those meant, but Wikipedia wasn't being helpful for the kinds of questions I had. Search was doing nothing. So I went in, talked to ChatGPT, and I was like, hey, there's these two concepts. I'm trying to understand the difference. And, give me some examples. And it's like, and then it was like, do you want to dive into one of those areas more or something else? And I was like, yeah, can we focus on programming for a minute, right? Deep dive there. Okay, I get what you're saying there. What if we were talking about like social interaction and how people interact socially that are bottom-up thinkers versus top-down, and like what kind of miscommunications can they have? Because that's a problem I have in real life. And so I was able to dive into that. And I was like, well, tell me more about this thing. And just being able to, I referenced an earlier conversation I'd had with ChatGPT, and I said, actually, me learning about GraphQL is a great example of how I learn. Tell me if the way I did that was bottom up or top, right? That kind of thing is something anyone could do. It's just having a conversation. Like if you think about it that way with someone who knows stuff.
Yeah.
You'd be like, hey, smart person that I know, can you explain integrals to me? I just don't understand what they're for, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why a lot of people kind of attribute ChatGPT equals AI, because it's the most popular interface to an AI that people have right now that is, free. Like I was just looking at my history with ChatGPT, and I didn't realize that I've used it a lot more than I thought. Going back to 2023, I probably have like 100 conversations with it.
Wow.
I know, and I was kind of surprised, but like it really ramped up when I started my new job, and I had to learn this framework that I didn't know, and also is not super popular. compared to a lot of the other JS frameworks. And
So you don't have that community that you can go to on like Reddit or whatever and just ask questions.
Finding efficiently information about current versions of this framework, not back when it was popular 10 years ago framework, but now, it was like Stack Overflow was actually failing me. Google search was actually failing me. I wasn't finding relevant, recent information about a lot of the questions I had while I was trying to learn it. And I have found it invaluable at unearthing that stuff and being able to do it in a conversational way and being able to refer to stuff. And I can just type code directly in and say, like, here's my code. I needed to do this, but it's not doing that. How would I make this do that? And then it's surprisingly, like you said, it's like a knowledgeable friend. It's like, oh, well, did you try this? Oh, you can do this 3 different ways. Here, let me show you how to do it the first way and the second way and the third way. And yet I feel bad about it. But at the same time, I realize that like I would not be able to ask the right questions, let alone take the information it's giving me and use it in any way helpful if I wasn't a smart programmer who knew what I was doing. Right. But it is taking the tedium out of trying to find this information and presenting it in a way that is incredibly helpful.
Yeah, as someone who wanted to be a teacher and did teach improv for, like a decade or something, I find it frustrating that people have lost the skill of imparting knowledge in a useful way, right? YouTube, there's tons of YouTube videos out there that are trying to teach you things.
Hey, guys.
And very few of them are any good. Also, video is about the worst possible way you can teach me something. Like me personally, other people love it, right? But like if I'm searching for a recipe, I don't want to watch you talk about it. I also don't want to read about your visit to Fiji. Like I just get to the point. That's why I like text. But I digress. As like people have lost the ability to concisely and easily explain things. It's just sad, right? Enter AI. It's taking over that piece, and that makes me sad as someone who really, really, really respects teachers and wanted to be one, would still consider being one if they would pay me enough. But like people are going to fall more and more on this, but there's still a piece that it's not going to be perfect at, and that's where we're always going to still need teachers, because like you said, you don't even know what questions to ask if you don't know enough. Like it's when you know just enough to like start asking questions, but you don't know like the right words or the concepts. When I was learning about woodworking, and I was like, what do you call it when 2 pieces of wood connect? Like there's a term for how you it's joint. Okay, cool. Now I can use the right word from now on. Mm-hmm. Searching for that is a lot harder than asking ChatGPT. She'll be like, do you mean this, or this? I'm like, oh, that one. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. Now I will push back on because I feel like we're going super pro ChatGPT, like chat bot.
Screw ChatGPT, stupid thing.
Yeah, but what I will say is that I had a really bad experience with some customer service that was only being delivered over chatbot, and it obviously was not ChatGPT. It wasn't that smart, and it was not helpful. And all I wanted to do was just talk to a human being that I could talk to conversationally. So it's not always a good thing. When it's bad, it's real bad, and when it's good, like ChatGPT and stuff like that, I mean that's relatively new. We've had chatbots for a long time that have been nowhere near as good as ChatGPT, and they definitely have given chatbot like a very negative connotation, when really what ChatGPT is just a super duper chatbot plus.
Yeah, and it's actually that kept me away from using this kind of thing for so long. And I know we're talking very programming specific, but that's the kind of stuff that you and I need to learn. But this is true for anything, right? You want to learn how to knit, right? And you're like, okay, I know what yarn is, and I know what needles are, and I see that a lot of people make socks. Like, where do I start? Where would I even go buy yarn? I don't know that, right?
Yeah.
You can just hop on to ChatGPT or other similar programs. ChatGPT, again, like you said, is one of the easier ones. It has a low barrier to entry to use.
Yeah.
And it's relatively easy to talk to, to get your questions answered on it.
Yeah.
But like you just go on there and ask that question, like, hey, I kind of want to start knitting. My friend knits, but I don't want to bug them. But I kind of like what they do, and like, how do I do this? Or I'm building a house in the middle of the forest and I don't want anyone to know I live there. How do I build an underground bunker or whatever? Like you can ask and it'll just like give you a list of things and you can dig into it. It's really fun. And if you're lonely, it feels like you're talking to someone.
Yeah, I think the fun part that there's a lot of fun uses of AI right now. I think that unfortunately, you know, like my issue with using the generative AI for imagery, you know, like the same thing with like, you know, all the programming and the text and like I said, you can make music and all kinds of things with it. But there's that ethical underpinning of like that I sort of feel bad about it. And some of it I started and then I stopped. And I'm thinking like, you know, sure, I could write music for a thing, or someone could use something like Suno, Suno, which just says like, hey, give me, you know, jazz in 3/4 at 121 BPM for 3 minutes or something like that. And it will give you something that kind of fits that bill. But it took.
And if you just want background music, that's fine.
Yeah, or if you want like a Zoom wallpaper or something. But but it takes all of the humanity out of like, why do
it's
we
very
make art?
sterile.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean like even if it was good, even if it was good or indistinguishable from something that a human made, like I still know that a human didn't make it, that there wasn't a human behind it with a story and like hardship and years of practice and like they made this particular art for a reason. Like, you know, so much of art created by humans is not because of the thing they made in the end. It's because of all of the journey, you know, like, I mean, we're all going to, you know, die someday. That's not really significant. Yeah, sorry about that. I sorry to let you in on that, but what is significant to us as humans is the journey. And so like, yeah, I could go to Suno or I could go to Night Cafe or Dali and say, give me a thing that doesn't exist. And it will, and there's value in that, but there is something lost in my opinion.
There's not really innovation there, right? You can kind of get it to like start, like combine these two styles and you might get something, but it's not going to have that soul to it.
Yeah, that indefinable soul.
And there is, you know, it's lacking. You can see it like every time I see AI artwork, like I saw one the other day for like, I think it was a fan casting of like a live action Thundercats. And the art looked good, you know, Margot Robbie as Chitara, and like it looked like her, but the movement of the backgrounds and the, like everything, it was so very clearly AI generated that it almost went into an uncanny valley for me, and I was like, ew, I hate this immediately.
You know, I once listened to, I don't know, about a third of a YouTube video that was one of Metallica's albums, but done in the style of like a 50s or a 60s surf rock band or something like that. I don't know what it was. And it was like, wow, this is really good. It actually kind of sounds like James Hetfield from Metallica singing this song that I've known for decades, but in this other style, as if it happened like that, like an alternate reality. Like it was definitely that uncanny valley where like, this is just good enough to make me uncomfortable. But also like it's hard to deny that like it's amazing that something made this, because obviously this didn't happen. Metallica did not exist in the 60s. And it's like, and I don't know how to feel about that. It just puts me in a weird state where it exists and it has value, but I also kind of wish it didn't exist. I don't know.
Well, there's folks I follow on social media who do exactly that kind of thing. Where they're like, I'm going to take this song and what if Mickey Mouse, what if Disney, a Disney princess sang Incubus, right? Or something. And then like they'll put together, and it's like, and they show the process behind it, and the process behind it is fascinating to me. And like they explain things in a way I'm like, all right, Disney songs tend to go like, you know, they tend to have this kind of meter to, I don't understand it. I don't know music. And like, you know, I got to get my pitch kind of up here singing wise. And so this and this other thing. And I'm like, I find, and then those are always better than the AI versions. Period. Mm-hmm. The AI ones might be more technically accurate, maybe sometimes, but they don't feel real to me. Like after a while, they lose their luster. But those ones that these people actually do, almost always, like I'm like, this is legitimately good. It sounds like a song, a real song that I might actually want to listen to sometimes.
I'm curious though, because obviously you and I are roughly of the same age and era. Like, will our kids have any of that ethical hang up with any of this? Because I don't think they will have the same one, because it will just be normal for them, you know?
I think they might.
Really?
I've seen pushback from like the Gen Z era. I don't know about Gen Alpha, which is our kids probably. I lose track in there, but I think that's what our kids are. I don't know if they'll have it, but like I've seen pushback a lot from like Gen Z. I want to call them kids, but they're like young adults now. On like the ethical use of it from an environmental standpoint, like how much AI is used, and like from exactly that artistic standpoint, like artists. It's about keeping that awareness. Like this is what the ramifications of this are. And it would be so easy to see like the world entering like, you know, the spaceship in Wall-E where everyone's just kind of like
Yes, I do.
sitting and going through the motions. It's so easy for me to extrapolate the current AI landscape into leading us to that. Like
Yeah.
where you're doing nothing. There's nothing is new, nothing is changing. You're like, I really enjoyed the first season of Freaks and Geeks, but they canceled it after one season. Generate me 3 more seasons, right? And it's just going to be, it'll look and sound right, but it'll never have that soul, I don't think. The acting won't be as good, all that stuff. And I think younger generations will recognize this. I don't think all of them will, but I do think it'll be there. And I think they'll push back on it from an aesthetics point of view first, like a vibes thing of like, I don't like the way this feels, the uncanny valley thing. But even once they get over that, I really do think that they'll see like, oh, this is kind of ripping off this thing I really like and care about, and I want to put my money and time into this thing that a real person spent effort on, because it's the collaborativeness of. I picked Freaks and Geeks because my daughter and I are watching it right now. Yeah, but I'm introducing my daughter to it right now, and she's loving it. But like watching it for like the 3rd or 4th time now, myself, I'm really watching it from like it's interesting that Lindsay, she is really got that. They talk about Crime and Punishment in one of the first episodes, and they're talking about the main character, and it's like a nihilist with a moral center or something. And I'm like, that's the main character of this show. And like, that's not going to come out of AI.
Not yet.
Not yet. But if it does, I don't know. When AI is really alive, maybe the ethical concerns won't be there, because everybody learns from other people. The whole standing on the shoulders of giants thing.
Yeah, especially AI.
It's about how much it's doing that and how much it's producing its own things and how much of your thoughts it's taking and like bringing in, as opposed to just like copying other people. I think that balance is always going to be concerning to at least a subset of people in any generation.
I hope so. I just wanted to throw out a few more things that AI is actually good for. I don't know if you mentioned summarizing, but that seems to be really popular right now. Taking a really long, somewhat opaque body of text that maybe you don't have the time or the willingness or the ability to understand. AI can summarize it for you, which
a great example of that. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Well, I was just going to say, like, is good, can be looked at both good and bad. I mean, I see it as a good thing for people who have the inability to do that stuff, but I also feel like it's kind of adjacent to the whole, hey, AI, write my grandma a get well card. Like, it pushes off something that maybe humans should be doing, understanding text, because otherwise AIs could read it and summarize it badly, and you would never know because you trust it implicitly.
Yeah. Well, it's the trust but verify that needs to happen with AI. So I will tell a story where I find that summarization to be really useful, which is in, like, say, a Slack thread. If there's a Slack thread at work that people have been talking in, or, Teams or whatever, whatever thing you're using to talk to your coworkers. And let's say there's people been going back and forth for a couple of days on a topic, and then they're like, oh, Matt is a person that we should bring into this conversation. Mm-hmm. Now, what they should do is, hey, Matt, summary of their own. Can you weigh in on this part of the topic, right? That's how they should bring you into the conversation. Instead, what most people seem to do is just at you, and now you're in the conversation. So we have bots at work that we can just come in and be like, summarize. And so when someone does that to me, that's what I do. I come in, I'm like, well, they didn't give me any context, and I don't have time to read a 200 message long thread right now to find out if they're just telling me this because I should know something in the last 2 lines, So I'll type summarize and I'll read that. And then I'm like, okay, this is the gist of it. And then I can kind of like just read the last few lines where they were, whatever made them bring me in. And I can get more context. And before I say anything, like I won't base anything on anything that's in the summary, right? I use that to give me context for the overall thread at a glance, basically. Yeah. And then I come back and I'm like, oh, this is the example they actually used.
Yeah, it was like how we talked about how it's good for brainstorming. That tedious transition from not being into something and then trying to get into that thing.
Yep.
Which is like the learning thing, too. I don't know how to do X. How can I bridge the gap from not knowing how to do a thing to getting started with it?
Yeah. And then the worst for me is I do know how to do this thing, and I'm so tired of doing it because I've been doing it all the time. Can you just do this for me? And that brings me into my last thing I want to talk about, which is fairly technical, but I'm sure is true for other things beyond programming, which is GitHub Copilot. And there's other variations on this. There's like Klein and some other things, and they all do slightly different things. But I've been using GitHub Copilot specifically. What that is it's an LLM, just like all these other things we've been talking about, and it sits in my editor in VS Code where I'm writing my code, and it's a more advanced autocomplete is the majority of where I use it. But what I really like about it, and where it actually impresses me, well, actually the autocomplete really impresses me lately. I'm writing a bunch of like similar classes right now, and they almost all have the same rough format. I'm doing roughly the same thing with slight variations. And it's been smart enough to figure that out. And sometimes I'll be experimenting with things on the command line and then go back in and go to type, and it'll autofill and it'll have looked at my shell. And I'm like, this is amazing. This is like it to me, it's like having a little intern who can just, I'm like, can you just go write this so I don't have, I'll do the smart parts of it. Can you just put the crap in there?
Ooh, do you also use it for spinning up like basic tests for new features?
I have not I've seen other people that haven't yet gotten there. Okay. I need to, right? Because I hate writing I hate the test framework. I hate the entire process of it. I write all my classes to be very testable, but unit test frameworks suck, quite frankly. I don't like using them. And so, yeah, I saw someone who just did exactly that. They spun up a bunch of, they used Klein, and they were just like, hey, I've got this thing. And they talked to it very, very, like, as if you're just talking, hey, man, I'm looking for this thing. It's kind of how,
hey, I need some tests. Give me some tests,
highlight code and be like, see this code? Do this. Yeah. And that's where that's where I see it having real value, is that I wrote something the other day, and I realized halfway through it that I really didn't like the way I was organizing the code, and I knew exactly how to change it. It's going to take me like 15 minutes to do this. Just because I have to move this over there, and it's switching between files, and I need to rename that file, and I made a mistake, and I'm busy. And back when I had interns, that was great. I would say, hey, Tom, go do this thing. It would happen. So that gets back into the ethical thing. It's just taking someone's job. But I don't have that, and I don't have any control over that. So being able to highlight my code and say, hey, can you reformat this so that, every parameter is on its own line, and let's use 2 spaces instead of 4 spaces. And I actually use this variable all over the place in this project, but this is really the wrong name for it. Can you change all that and break this function out into its own class called blah, and put that in its own file. And you just write that, and then it goes and does it. And then you confirm it, right? It's like,
right,
okay.
You verify.
Yeah. It says accept or reject at the end. And I'm like, this is good. Yeah. Most of the times I just say accept, and then I'll fix anything that's broken. Yeah. Or that I don't like, because it got close enough where I'm not spending 20 minutes doing data entry, right?
Well, and that's a real good point about using it to produce code, is that code is naturally verifiable, i.e. you put it in and you run it. Does it run without error? Well, then it did something right, But if it immediately errors like, oh, you used a method that doesn't exist in this language, then you know right away that it was bad.
But I have seen people use Copilot and things like that, and they're like, "Write me a service that does X, Y, and Z." Mm-hmm. And like they don't write any of the code. And I can tell, when that happens because it's just slightly wrong. Mm-hmm. Like it has it's a vibe. Again, to use
it's all
my
vibes.
daughter's generation's word. I'm like, it's not done in a way that a human being would do it. It's done in a way that is functional. But like if I had to maintain this code, I would want to hurl myself off of an AI generated window.
Off of a window. Wow.
Yeah. See, that's the kind of thing that AI would say.
Yeah. You know, one last thing that I wanted to mention on things that ChatGPT suggests using AI for, which I have, this is a big old exclamation mark next to this. Mental health support. AI chatbots like Woebot, lol, offer emotional support. Now, you did talk about using ChatGPT as like if you're lonely, talk to it, but
that was mostly a joke.
Yeah, but ChatGPT is actually suggesting you use a chatbot that I've never heard of, although I'm still lolling at the name, called Woebot. I don't know if that exists. Maybe it made it up, but it does sound like something that could exist. I would recommend not doing that. I would recommend talking to a real human if it's at that level of support.
I think the answer can be both.
Oh,
and I think it's a similar thing to what I was just describing with like I don't have interns. Like this is not a position on my team to which I can just throw people at. I would rather have a person for this, but I don't have one. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, instead of me doing it, which like if you're having mental health issues, you can't always fix them yourself. I can speak from first person here. You need outside help. Sometimes just being able to like verbalize your thoughts and get it regurgitated back to you is actually really helpful. And if you don't have, mental health help is not available for everyone. Insurance is a problem in this country. If you're listening in America, pretty much nowhere else. There's my politics for the day.
Also capitalism bad.
Yeah. Well, naturally, why do you think it's bad? Why do you think it's like that? But it can be helpful, right, to go in there, but you shouldn't rely on it, right?
Yeah.
It's useful in a pinch. It's helpful. I've gone in there to like talk about like before I go into a therapy session, like I want to discuss this topic, but I don't quite. I process by talking or by texting, and so like I don't always have people that I want to talk about these things with. Except my therapist, but I don't want to waste my hour trying to get to the point of asking the thing I really want to ask about or get bogged down. So I will go into something like ChatGPT and be like, okay, I'm looking at like the difference between these two mental health issues and I'm trying to understand this and like I'm experiencing this. I had this event. Would that fall more naturally under this, or is it both? And that's helpful. But then I go to my actual person who's trained on this and talk to them about it. It's like going to WebMD. People will be like, hey, I have a headache. And they're like, oh, you have brain cancer, right?
Yeah.
Don't use it like that. It's not a diagnostic tool, but it can be helpful.
Okay.
As like a tool. It should be considered a tool and not a solution.
Right. And that's what AI is in all of the different examples we've given, that it is a tool to hopefully help you do something that you need assistance with. I mean, it should probably not be the only thing. And you should verify, especially if you're using it to get results that are actionable. That's something you should definitely verify. I mean, it could be as simple as like personalized recommendations in, a streaming platform. You want to know what to watch. Well, AI is definitely helping you figure out what to watch rather than you choosing things at random. How good that is, I mean, that varies, but that is something that you use implicitly if you use any kind of streaming platform, Obviously, there's a lot of other things that the average user can use AI for, but I think really doing the like writing assistance, automating tedious things, summarizing things. Yes, you can use it to generate images and music, but use them for prototypes. Don't use them for finished products. Don't
Very
sell
much
them.
that.
Don't pass them off as your own, please.
We will judge you.
Yes. And I'm glad you brought up even at the very beginning that like you might want to use one of those tools, not because you're a soulless human that wants to become an automaton, but more that you might actually have a legitimate like inability or disability that's keeping you from doing that. You know, like I can't handwrite a letter to grandma because I broke my
I don't
arm.
have hands.
Yeah, don't have hands. I wasn't going to go there, but sure, yeah. Don't know.
I broke my arm. Is that what you
what
said?
paper
That's
is?
yeah.
Yeah. So
Paper has gotten very expensive, and they don't ship it to my part of the country, so I'll outsource it to this service, and they'll print. Fine.
yeah.
Here's a sample of my handwriting. Can you make it look like I hand wrote this? But it is painful for me to write because I have carpal tunnel, so I can type it out. Those are fine.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you put that in the citations part of your letter, so that grandma knows that. Hopefully, she should already know that. You watched the movie Her, right, with Joaquin Phoenix?
I have not actually seen it, but I am aware of the concept of it.
You should definitely watch it, but more specifically, that he works for like a greeting card company in the future. And I don't know if it I think it's one of those things where like they will do the card for you, they'll write it and send it, but it's still a bunch of humans doing it. But still, it's like one of those outsourcing a thing that was a human to human thing. Now it's a human to company to human thing. And AI is sort of taking over that company as just an algorithm that will do it for you. Be careful with that. Let's keep that in check.
Exactly.
All right. Okay, I think that wraps it up for this episode on the practicalities of AI in 2025, where it's at and what you can use it for. You can get more of our discussions about this kind of thing online at hackingthegrepson.com. I swear all of our episodes are done by us two humans, recorded using technology, but there is no AI involved yet. And until the next time we talk at you, we now return you to your regularly scheduled lives already in progress.